serious right now, and you guys can figure out. Okay, well, thank you. I think I try to be responsive.
There's enough going on
Okay.
right now.
I just hit like the max, and I.
That opening logo. Yeah,
Charlottesville City Council.
Ben Chambers, Transportation Planning Manager with the City of Charlottesville.
Ann Law, I serve as Deputy County Executive, Albemarle County.
Peter Krebs from the Piedmont Environmental Council.
Lucinda Shannon with the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission.
Gretchen Thomas, TJPDC. Happy to have you introduce yourself.
Thank you. I'm Sarah Richardson, and I work with the PAC program.
The what?
The PAC.
Oh, PATH program. Who got it? Oh, wow. And you're good. All right. I have a couple of notes as we get started. I'm going to ask for approval of the agenda in a minute, but I just wanted to let you know that I'm going to add to the agenda the Central Virginia Regional Housing Partnership has requested a designee from us for a representation. As the chair, I attend Central Virginia Regional Housing Partnership, but they are asking now for folks, a substitute, in other words. Oh, that's another word. I'm a former teacher, so I use substitute. An alternate. And so at the end of the meeting, I would like for us to just have a quick discussion and ask for someone to volunteer to be the alternate. The other thing that I'm going to ask for at the end of the meeting is a letter of support from us, from the partnership, for a PATH grant that is coming up. So those two things will be added to the agenda, and with that, I'd like to ask for approval of the agenda as amended.
So moved.
So moved from, all right, and is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Lucinda, would you call for the vote, please?
Yes. Supervisor McKeel.
Yes.
Councilor Orshin.
Yes.
Oshrin.
Here.
Sorry.
Hi.
Supervisor Pruitt.
Hi.
Director Parker. Ms. Miller.
Hi.
Director Silsdorf.
Yes.
And that's all I have.
Okay, we're good for the voting members. So the agenda has been approved as amended. The next item on our agenda is approval of our draft meeting minutes from September the 26th, which seems like such a long time ago, but we had them at your table, I believe. Lucinda sent them out during the day today, but you do have a copy at your seat, and I'll give you a minute, since they were not in the original packet. I'll give you a minute to just take a look at them, and then I'll entertain a motion for approval of the meeting minutes from September 26th. And if you, please don't hesitate, if you see something, speak up and we can address any changes that you might need or edits.
unclosed pairing on item 4.
Mike has
We
a
were all sitting here with a pregnant pause, wasn't it?
Mike had an edit. Okay, got it.
Got it, Bones? Okay.
Yeah.
That is attention to detail.
Yep.
Can I-
Misplaced comment, fourth para on section 5.
Fifth para.
Oh, fifth para.
Attention to
Can you
detail.
say that again for me? There's a
After
misplaced
rollable.
comma after rollable in the fifth paragraph in number 5.
Okay.
Can I move that we accept the agenda as amended so far, so we don't find any more those minor edits?
Yes, so we have a motion to approve the minutes from September 26th. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, now there is a second. Would you call for the vote for the approval of the minutes, please, Lucinda?
Supervisor McHale,
Yes.
Counselor Ostrom,
Yes.
Supervisor Pruitt,
Aye.
Director Parker,
Here.
Who's just coming in.
Ms. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Silstor,
Yes.
and that's all.
Okay, thank you. Our next item on the agenda, matters from the public. Lucinda, do we have anyone who's signed up to speak?
We don't have anyone who signed up. If there's somebody online now or in the room who wishes to speak, you can raise your hand. If you're online, you can raise your hand using the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen. And I don't see anybody raising their hands.
So with that, we're going to move to the third item on our agenda, which is JAUNT's. John is presenting 2 studies for us today. And then we have a presentation on microtransit. I'm going to ask if it works for everyone, if we could switch the order and let microtransit go first, just because of some, that allows our presenter to not stay for the whole meeting if he chooses not to, which I think is advantageous for him. So having said that, if there's no objection,
I just
then
have a quick question
Sure.
first, actually. There are 3 chats, and I just want to make sure that's not someone trying to say something.
That is not, that is the presenter and Jason.
Okay.
Lucinda follows those.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Great,
that's
I just
okay.
wanted to make sure it wasn't
Yeah,
them.
no, Lucinda follows the chat for us. All right, so microtransit potential presentation, and with that, I'm going to look to Jason, I believe, who is.
Are you introducing?
You introducing, I wasn't sure who was introducing, so Mike, would you introduce, please?
I will try, and I said a lot of nice things about Randy yesterday at the JAUNT board meeting, and I may have used it all up, but, Randy Farwell is the primary on this project from Benish, and this is a project that had was already in flight when I joined JAUNT at the beginning of this year, and I want to give credit to Randy and his team for inheriting Jason and I, who had a little bit different way of interpreting their data and vision, and iterating with us to what is really an important and useful project for JAUNT. And so, all kidding aside, they've done a tremendous job on this study, and I think it gives us good direction. Eager for you all to hear about it today, and for the JAUNT board to continue to consider the ramifications when we have our retreat in January.
Great.
So from here forward, I'll turn it over to Mr. Farwell.
Mr. Farwell, you just unmute yourself, and we're good. And you can introduce yourself as you would, and we're anxious to hear your presentation.
Thank you very much. Mike, Jason, thank you very much. I'm Randy Farwell. I'm with Benish, and I'm a transit planner, and I specialize in the application of technology to mobility and really the development of microtransit types of systems. So I'm going to share my screen, and ask for a thumbs up if you can see the screen. You see, not yet?
No, we don't see a presentation yet.
Do you see it there? Oh,
No. Now it's coming.
how's that?
Now we got it.
Thumbs up.
Did it work?
It's working, yes.
Perfect, perfect. Then I'm going to move right ahead and try to go through this presentation quickly and then get to any questions you have right afterwards. So as I said, happy to be here to present this project. It was a very interesting one, especially as Mike alluded to. So essentially, we're looking at introducing for you a discussion of microtransit as a potential service delivery option for JAUNT. The presentation explains what microtransit is and how it works. It describes 3 operating scenarios that we examined in the feasibility study and presents the recommendations for developing microtransit applications for JAUNT. So what is microtransit? So it's a shared ride, curb-to-curb service that operates within a defined zone. Riders are requested by the user, or rides are requested by the user in real time and can be pre-scheduled. Riders use a mobile app or a web browser, or they may call the call center to request a ride. The services, yes?
Your slides are not advancing.
Ah.
Yep, there we go.
That means I have to multitask. Thank you.
All right.
Talk and push buttons.
All right. Let me go back. There we go. So, microtransit rides can be requested using the mobile app or web browser or by calling the call center. The service is customer account based, and this means that each user has an account profile that includes any mobility limitations, contact information, payment information, home location, and frequent trip destinations. Microtransit uses a cloud-based software as a service platform, a SaaS, and a series of user-weighted objectives that are used by algorithms to provide trip planning, trip booking, fare payment, and to optimize trip requests and assignments of those requests to vehicles, as well as the sequencing of vehicle and customer pickups and drop-offs. The service optimization is continuous throughout the course of the operating day. So with each operating day, the service history helps the system better understand what the next day's service is going to look like. So this becomes really important in terms of right sizing the amount of service that's needed for the services as you're moving forward, as well as providing really important information for future planning. So all services would continue to be ADA compliant and serve the general public as well as persons with disabilities. And the service scenarios that we developed all assume that JAUNT is using their own vehicles and using their own drivers. All right, so again, what is microtransit as it relates to JAUNT? So our findings are that the microtransit concept appears to be a good fit for JAUNT. It will enhance and optimize the existing operating model by finding more shared ride solutions and adjusting to changes in real-time conditions throughout the course of the operating day. It'll be an attractive option for a larger portion of the population. It will expand options to request rides for immediate, same day, and future, as opposed to requiring one to call 24 hours in advance. It increases accessibility to mobility for many more people within the service area, and it increases access to opportunity by doing so. It will improve operating performance, that's productivity, ridership, and cost effectiveness, and provide greater operational flexibility to serve mobility needs in the rural areas, as well as trips between Charlottesville and the surrounding counties. And the map that's shown here include a heat map of ridership activity, as well as ridership activity along the connect routes. And the ridership activity from the connect routes is from May of 2023. So our feasibility study purpose was to examine existing mobility need, mobility services, operational and financial performance, and assess whether any existing services would benefit from the application of microtransit operating concepts and technologies. Examine mobility needs at the census block level. The map on the top shows a bivariate analysis of mobility need and population from low to high. The lighter shades reflect lower need and lower population, and the darker shades reflect higher needs and greater population. The map on the bottom represents mobility gaps. So these are areas where mobility need or transit propensity is higher, yet services are more limited, and identifies where services access to services are more limited. This analysis highlights opportunities for improved access to mobility and was used to inform locations where microtransit service may be tested. A series of operating concepts were considered and assessed for likely viability and to serve as pilot projects. All services considered would be required to be ADA accessible, and they were designed to be ADA accessible. As service concepts were developed, we determined the operating rules, the service span, the vehicle requirements, ridership productivity, and operating costs. These were compared to existing operations and performance. We also determined the functional requirements of the SaaS platform to facilitate the services. The operating concepts all assumed existing vehicles and drivers would operate the service, and 3 concepts were examined in detail, and 2 of those are recommended for initial pilot service consideration. Since the largest and most expensive service operated by JAUNT is the ADA paratransit service in the urbanized area, and since it serves a population with limited mobility options, the top priority objective in this study was to find ways to improve ADA service delivery for the customers and to make service more cost-effective and sustainable. We modeled serving the ADA trips using a microtransit operating concept in the SaaS platform. The service would be only available to ADA eligible individuals, and it would be fully ADA compliant. It would also expand options to include immediate and same-day requests, as well as pre-scheduled trips. We found that the efficiency of the microtransit model as applied to the ADA service area would allow JAUNT to serve existing daily ADA demand more cost-effectively through increased service productivity from greater ability to create shared trips. This will have beneficial fiscal impacts for JAUNT in the long term, but it will also provide better, more responsive services for ADA customers. For Greene County, we created a microtransit pilot, and we recommend this pilot. The pilot would use a cloud-based SaaS platform to provide Circulator, which is the localized trips within Greene County. We examined existing travel demand and noted the primary focus of demand in and between Stannardville and Ruckersville. Through modeling, we found that the existing Circulator trips can be operated at a higher productivity, requiring fewer peak vehicles, so 6 as opposed to 9, and would provide capacity for up to a 25% increase in ridership. During the pilot, we proposed examining demand to and from Charlottesville and to assess the requirements, operating costs, productivity to serve the Link trips as a microtransit service, or extending the US 29 North Connect route to Ruckersville. With microtransit providing localized circulator trips, a direct connection to the Connect service at Ruckersville is likely to increase ridership and cost effectiveness of the Connect service. So the Connect service is the fixed route piece of it. The links are those on-demand connections between, in this case, Greene County and Charlottesville. We also looked at potential services for Crozet. So JAUNT currently serves few trips daily on the Crozet circulator service. So that's the localized service within the Crozet service area. The majority of trips are provided on the Connect service between Crozet and Charlottesville, and then on the Link services, more on-demand services between Crozet and Charlottesville. We developed and modeled two service concepts. One involves serving the Connect, Link, and Circulator services with a combination of localized microtransit transfers to the Connect service and serving the Link trips as microtransit. The second concept focused only on the localized microtransit service in Crozet, and so that would be similar to providing the circulator service with a Crozet in Crozet with a microtransit model, and to provide connections to a streamlined Connect service between Crozet and Charlottesville. Our results suggested that the demand for localized circulator service would increase if operated as a microtransit service. This would increase revenue hours. We would also expect an increase in demand on the Link service, and this would also increase revenue hours. Ideally, changing the service model to operate microtransit locally in Crozet and serving travel between Crozet and Charlottesville with a streamlined and more frequent Connect fixed route service would provide a more attractive and cost-effective service. However, the increased demand would likely increase the amount of service needed, the revenue hours, and thus the operating costs. Therefore, our recommendation is to wait on a Crozet pilot and consider it after operational experience is gained from the Greene County pilot. So our recommendations in summary are that, one, the microtransit concept using a cloud-based platform and operating services with JAUNT vehicles and drivers would be a feasible would be feasible and would result in increased ridership and service cost effectiveness. JAUNT should consider advancing a microtransit operating pilot for the ADA services in the urbanized area. It would provide immediate and same-day travel benefits for riders and a more cost-effective operation for JAUNT. The Greene County existing ridership is high compared to other JAUNT service markets, and a microtransit service concept is expected to increase demand, ridership, and benefit JAUNT through a more cost-effective operation. A microtransit service would increase access to mobility, better connect people to places, and provide immediate same-day and scheduled services. A microtransit pilot is recommended for trips within Greene County. However, or in addition, during this pilot, we recommend that JAUNT monitor the demand for Link services to and from Charlottesville and examine the viability of extending the US 29 North Connect route to Ruckersville in the future. 4, to accomplish these microtransit services, JAUNT should license a cloud-based SaaS platform to provide the software and functionalities needed for ride requests to support account-based customer uses, facilitate optimized operations, and data collection and reporting. Future services should be considered, including defining a microtransit service for Crozet and other communities, as well as assessing the need and potential to extend the US 29 North Connect service to Ruckersville to provide improved travel between Greene County and Charlottesville. All right, I'm going to stop sharing. Can you still see the screen?
Yeah, I see a picture on your screen, but the
Okay,
presentation,
let me,
but it's not the presentation.
Looks like a screensaver.
Yeah,
there we go.
there you go.
There we go. All right.
Um,
Okay, I would be happy to take questions. I know I covered a lot and I tried to go through this fast. So I am happy to take any questions.
so let me open it up for questions from the folks present. Any questions? Yes, Ben.
Yeah, so I've actually seen this presentation already. So I've had a little bit of time to stew on it. And I think one thing that I was a little confused on was maybe the first slide where we're defining what microtransit is. I don't know if that slide would be any different if we changed it to what is paratransit based on what's listed on there. So it seems like we're kind of doing two different things with microtransit here, and maybe there's some confusion over what the definition of that should be.
Yeah, and as people are asking,
So that's,
can you go back?
well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just referencing, I think sometimes it's handy to go back to the first slide, because it's handy to look at the slide as people are asking questions, if you can do that. That's a really great question.
It kind of seems like we're talking about a microtransit that is just paratransit with better scheduling, and a microtransit that's actually serving all users in a rural suburban setting in a specific area, in a rural specific area. And I don't know that that differentiation is made here. So that's a little bit confusing.
Yeah, that's a good point. And what we've done is microtransit, the way it's described here is in fact, how microtransit is being deployed in most places. There's been some evolution to the service. Initially, microtransit was really just testing whether or not the technology worked. And it then evolved to serving spaces, and generally was focused on serving first mile, last mile connections to fixed routes, or just serving areas within or demand within an area. The point we're at today is really looking at using microtransit a little bit more strategically to provide those curb-to-curb trips for anybody within a defined zone. In the JAUNT service area, because the only fixed route is really the Connect services. What we've done is we've broadened it to say, okay, well, we're going to, for example, this is where we struggled a little bit with Crozet, because logically it would make sense to make a Connect, to expand access to the Crozet service by providing that first and last mile connection to the Crozet service. And that makes perfect sense. The difficulty we ran into, though, is that because the circulator services ridership is so low in Crozet, pretty much anything we did is going to really explode the amount of ridership, which is going to be disruptive to the existing costs of Crozet services. And so, to be prudent, we're suggesting looking at doing a microtransit model in Greene County first, where the circulator demand is already high, and we have better ridership estimates for that service. The other thing I'll say about in terms of designing the microtransit service is it is an on-demand service immediately. It is app-based, so you can get a ride in 15 minutes. You can get a ride, in 3 hours, or you can call for an advance ride, a day or so ahead. However, the differentiation, and this is really important, is we've designed the services to be mobility for all, which means the access to that service is fully ADA accessible from the point of requesting the ride to accessing the vehicle. And what we've done is we've designed the services so that we're equally serving the general public as well as persons with disabilities. And through that account profile that I mentioned, it provides the information that is necessary for the service to know if I'm picking somebody up that's going to have a personal care attendant with them, that's going to need some assistance with boarding and alighting the vehicle. So we've really kind of focused on doing the best of both worlds in terms of providing a ADA accessible service that treats everybody the same. Where we find the benefits, though, is through in addition to that, is through the shared ride solutions. So what we're finding is that even where we have service areas where we have a high percentage of ADA eligible persons riding the service, the cost per trip are really going down. And what we're finding is that most of those trips are also commingled. So we're getting shared ride solutions. I don't know, that was probably way too much.
Be careful what you ask.
Sure, but I think you know where I was going with that, right? Yeah.
When we look at the JAUNT service area, which is about 2,800 square miles, and looked at some of those intensity maps that you saw early in Randy's presentation, why these three areas got more analysis were this. In the ADA area, in the UZA, we have both the right concentration and frequency and an eligibility overlay that makes it attractive and can help us improve the service. In Greene County, Randy advanced to the Greene County side. Why it makes sense in Greene County is when you see what will be like lavender lines on the Greene County map, should we ever arrive upon it.
Randy, can you move to the Greene County slide, please?
Sorry, I couldn't hear that. And Mike is popping in and out. So I'm not sure, I'm not getting what Mike is.
The Greene County map?
Greene County, yes.
Right. So what you see on the Greene County map is these lavender lines, and so what we're analyzing is, thousands of trips, 18,000 trips that happen in Greene County. But the overwhelming percentage of them is about Standardsville and Rutgersville, right? And because of that concentration, we can apply this to their whole catchment area and still serve those one-offs that are going to other parts of the county. As Randy said, why Crozet works less well is I put in a constraint that said, no more hours, no more vehicles, than we use today. And because we have really high ridership on the connect routes and low use of the circulator, we would be, no matter what scenario Benish put together for us, and I know that sometimes the consultants' averages on micro transit are inflated. We've all talked about that, at least many of the people in the room have, right? But they would drive the cost up, and we weren't prepared before we piloted this to ask Albemarle for any more money for Crozet. Crozet is is a really attractive market for Jaunt, and there's a lot of people who are riding that on the commuter route. For me to say it's a good use of asking Albemarle for money, if they're bringing themselves to a bus stop now to pick up a connect route, the only value is, will I bring people from Old Trail over to the, Great Value? And I don't know that we should ask for more money for that right now. And so that's how we got to where we are today.
I think my concern is more of how are you going to marketing these different areas. The UZA area where you're only picking up paratransit users, that's going to be confusing if you're calling it microtransit when it's butting up against microcat and against the microtransit services that UDA is using.
Microtransit is an application versus how we would market it, right? And in the same way that we to Washington, D.C., it's extraordinarily clear what they're marketing with those ADA vehicles, right? They are branded differently, and I don't think there would be much confusion about somebody thinking.
So you're saying with the application itself, there wouldn't be as much confusion?
Microtransit to me is the concept, the use of the optimization of the software, and doing things differently as a business, more so than how we tell the public about it. What we're telling the public is, we're going to give you, instead of 1 to 7 day advance service, we're going to give you real-time service in addition to reservations. And in the city, we market that as, you're still only the customers that we can serve, because we're in no way trying to do something differently. We want people who are not ADA riders to be on the CAT bus.
Right.
So,
yeah, and I think that's the goal for everybody. I just want to make sure that that's not confusing for the riders, that they understand that it's just better paratransit service that they're already getting, just with easier scheduling.
this to me is all about feasibility, and marketing is about messaging and implementation.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
And your official time. I don't want to cut. Are there any other questions?
Yes.
Yes.
So I think if there were general public here watching, a question that they might have, and I mean I have it too, other than the ADA accessibility of these vehicles, and I know that paratransit is the mission, for those folks who are general public who are not using who don't require the ADA assistance, how is this different than free Uber?
For your constituents, we don't serve the general public, so it would be not applicable. For Greene County, which is the only use case that we're piloting, it's about the nature of the reservation. They have free access to the service today. All of our services are fare free. It's about when you're making the reservation.
What's really important about this is what I mentioned in terms of creating greater access to mobility, because the biggest problem, especially in the more rural areas, is access to mobility. Unless you are on Medicaid or you're disabled, you generally, now JAUNT has services, but generally those are hurdles that are really difficult to overcome in most communities. And what we're really focusing on with designing microtransit for is really increasing that access to mobility for everybody. And it is particularly powerful for those persons who don't have access to a car. Think about the young adults, 15 to 24, that may have a high need to travel, but low resources to get around. Persons that are aging in place. In Sarasota, we developed, redesigned their transit network and introduced microtransit to integrate with their fixed route and paratransit. And what we found surprisingly is that 30% of their riders are people that are 55 to 75, and they're mostly using the app. But they've got this, they're traveling a lot more than they would otherwise. And we're finding the same thing with persons with disabilities that are using the services. Rather than traveling, a couple times a week or every few weeks, they're traveling a lot more freely, which is a lot more, liberating for individuals, and that's a really good thing for quality of life. And the nice thing about it is the
Message received, Randy.
Yeah,
Right.
so my question is
Yeah.
kind of more like, in the Greene County, and maybe I misunderstood this slide, but when you're talking about Greene County, my understanding was it would provide transit for people who need the ADA requirement information, or like vehicles, but then it also could be on demand for people who don't need that, and it's more than just
Absolutely, and that's how
curb
that
to.
service,
that is correct.
Problem,
that's
it's
how the
curb to
service
curb.
operates today.
Right, but what's changing now, from what I'm understanding, is now it'll be more immediate for scheduling.
Yep.
So again, I don't know how that's different from an Uber,
I can answer that.
It's not. It's supposed to be similar to
Well,
Uber.
except it's free.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, if I can comment on this, there is a big difference in that when you call an Uber, you're getting an individual in their vehicle who's coming to pick you up. And if you have a disability, or if you have a disability, you don't have the same access. So
Right. For the people
this addresses that, but it also addresses the point of making mobility much more affordable to the general public, especially those who are lower income.
All right,
So,
Randy,
thank you,
we're at the
Randy.
point of some agenda
Yeah.
management decisions here,
Yeah.
so appreciate your time. We'll follow up.
And we might want to very well come back to this
Yep.
topic again at another agenda.
I would.
Happy to.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, Mike, with that, Rural Transit Needs Assessment and the Rural Transit Needs Assessment Board, anyway, I'll let you.
So let me
Okay, quickly. go
circle
on.
back to
Yeah,
this.
that's fine.
Your question is, why is it different than free Uber? Well, if our system remains fare free and people have curb to curb service today, what it is a refinement and a different level of access. That's all. It's increasing their mobility, allowing for more immediate scheduling and trips. There's nothing different than today, except they don't need to know that they want to do something 1 to 7 days in advance.
That's the part. That's the bigger difference.
Yeah.
I also might hazard to guess that Uber doesn't operate in this area, full stop.
I was just gonna say too, when we're talking about Uber, we're talking about a non-governmental service.
Right, a private ride share.
We're talking about a service that people know the drivers have been vetted, there are all sorts of standards that they meet. There are all sorts of differences between an Uber and the service that we're offering, whether it's Microcat or this particular option that we're talking about.
Correct.
Very different. Just to put that on the
I'll
text.
also offer one other difference, which is the connection that Uber will provide to you. They will drive you from Greene County all the way to downtown Charlottesville. This is only creating a first mile, last mile connection to a regional service that will bring you down 29.
But I thought part of the presentation said there was curb to curb access.
Within that zone,
Within
if
that
you want to
zone.
travel
Within the
regionally,
zone.
you have to get on a
For their
bus.
circulator service, which is, if
Just
you live in
within
Greene County, can you go somewhere else in Greene County?
That.
Right, okay, so it's, which you could do with an Uber but pay for it, but this is just restricts your service area, but it's still free.
So it's increasing mobility in Greene County
Yes.
and connecting that first mile, last mile
To somewhere further away.
to Mike's fixed route service that's bringing
The
you
connect that comes down 29.
to Denton.
Just to put another point on it, this is what the Greene County Board of Supervisors has hired JAUNT to do. we're paid to do this. So, it's a service that Greene County wants.
Sure, and I'm not out here arguing against it, I'm just trying to figure out what the difference is.
Where's that line? Yeah.
Yeah, where's that line?
It's a fair question.
Yeah, it can be confusing. A lot of people, they talk about microtransit, they use an Uber analogy, it's kind of on demand.
Yes.
But the differentiator is, I think people have said it here, is that this is still a public service. And the algorithms will commingle rides. So they'll do their best to, if they're picking a person, taking them here, oh, and this person needs to go over there, they'll pick that person up, drop this. They'll be doing that kind of a service, which is a little different than Uber, but that's, take
We're gonna move quickly through rural transit.
I was gonna say, I just wanna
Rural
make sure.
transit
you
has
have it.
been with JAUNT for quite a while now. The differentiator is that, we have missed a lot of meetings, during this, fall, where it didn't fit into the schedule at exactly the right time in favor of PARTA and other discussions. The work was done by some folks from North Dakota State. Jason and I will be here in the room with you and be responsive to all the cues about when we should stop talking, which is an advantage over online presentation. Jason's going to take you really quickly through how the study was done and what we're looking for and what drives transit ridership. Then I'll talk about, in the 7 jurisdictions that we were studying, what the recommendations were and how we followed up thus far.
Great, thanks,
you.
Mike. Many of you have already seen this, right? So maybe your second or third time, but some of you it's the first time. Just to keep it interesting, I updated it a little bit, so this is a new presentation, hopefully get something else out of it. The study overview is these components. Jeremy, like everyone else, when you give it to a consultant, they look at the population demographics, everyone does that. They looked at existing transit service levels, they looked at service gaps, recommendations and conclusions, and that's the structure of the report. I'm going to keep it brief and really talk about the service gaps, and Mike's going to talk about recommendations. If you really want to satisfy your curiosity, Jeremy provided a 76-page report that outlines many different models used and why he chose the one he chose, etc. So you can certainly go there if you want it. Just a quick snapshot of the existing demand response trips per capita. Many of these areas, as you can see, the rural areas, a lot of them are 0.5 trips per capita, which is lower, right? You can see Greene, it was talked about, had a higher, they have a history of internal transit there, and there's more ridership just because you have Standardsville, Ruckersville kind of tied at the hip with the school system and so forth. So Louisa around has some as well. But Jeremy again looked at this. He has a lot of maps in his report. Please feel free to check them out. All right, so let's talk about the service gaps. So the first thing is, this slide outlines in a nutshell the steps are needed. It starts with a peer analysis to see what they learned, lessons learned from, oh yeah, here we go. What we see in other rural areas in terms of ridership and service, a mobility gap. He explains what it is in the report. It's the number of trips not taken because of the absence of a vehicle, right? Ridership models, he outlined 2 or 3, then he chose why he chose his own. Because his looks at demographics, those populations that are more transit dependent or have higher propensity for transit, mobility limited, and he compares that to, he sort of does the intersect with service levels to estimate demand. So he estimates demand. He established ridership targets, so what essentially he did is he set goals for ridership based on service levels. 3 different goals, and those goals were like numbers of riders that you can get to if you improve service. And for each of these goals, he comes up with a deficit, which is essentially the target that he establishes based on peer communities and other research, and R-squared and things like that, minus existing equals the deficit to reach each goal. So if you want to hit a goal, the deficit to overcome it is what you need to. So these are the ridership goals tied to service levels that he introduced and found for the report. So right now, trips fiscal year 2023, This is existing trips. The goal, for example, Albemarle is meeting goals 1 and 2. They can invest more to get to 3. He describes the goals as like a basic needs. Goal 1 is for basic needs. Goal 2 is on par with other transit agencies, sort of a middle level. And 3 is really doing well, high performing. We can go back to these if people have questions, but I want to get to another slide. Oh, yeah. We got an animation. County level ridership deficits. These are the deficits. So you take the target, take existing, subtract them out, and these are what you need to get to in order to get to a certain goal level. Make sense? All of the estimates that he gave us were, except for Albemarle and Green, to reach goal 1. Like, what it would need to take to get to reach goal 1 based on where you are now, just a basic needs. For Albemarle and Green, he said, what's this going to need to take to get to goal 3? These are the estimated operating costs to get those desired, to meet those target desired goals. I think this is based on around $37 per trip. That number can vary. So, and again, we can come back to these if people have questions. I just want to get through. We have 3 maps that the 2 maps that he gave us. I only chose to use goal 1 and 3 because those were the goals that were set for the communities. So all of these communities are below goal 1. Nelson, Buckingham, Fluvanna, Goochland, and Louisa. And interestingly enough, even though Albemarle, as a county, is doing well on goals 1 or 2, you can see based on census tracts that there is still need in rural areas. So a lot of that meeting the needs is really concentrated in the urbanized area of Albemarle. And it's making the whole county look good, but there's still areas of rural Albemarle that need help. So don't get fooled by the county level average, right? And then of course to reach the goal 3 would be Albemarle and Green would be targeting their goal 3 deficits. And then, that could call for some investment in those rural areas where he's targeted. Mike, recommendations.
So, obviously, these consultants are aware of each other's work, but not exactly in step as far as the timing. We continue to refine with Benish on microtransit. We've got microtransit in Crozet kind of in slot 3 as far as piloting, so that's a little bit different than this recommendation here. We have really, when you look at the amount of coverage and days of the week in Albemarle, we're in pretty good shape in relationship to this goal. It really would be about a concentration on particular areas of the county. Go to the next one. Buckingham. So right after this was presented to the boards, I went down, met for the afternoon with the folks in Buckingham County. And really, they feel like, from talking to their residents, there would be not enough demand for the kind of circulator service within the county, and that if anything, they're interested in a third workforce, solution, and a third connect route. But this recommendation for them, thinking about the investment of further local dollars, was not a hit for them. They love the workforce service. They feel like it's super important for connecting people to jobs at UVA and other places in Charlottesville. Savannah County, and actually, interestingly, I'm in conversation with the county executive's office about this right now. We'll be out there making a presentation on January 8th about the upcoming year. There is a real gap on the number of days per week and the hours per day. However, years ago, they cut back the number of times that there was a link between Albemarle, Charlottesville, and Fluvanna. And it's down to only Tuesday and Thursday right now. And they want to see that go up to 3, 4, or 5 days. And that's what they're prioritizing from these recommendations.
And that's kind of a work day,
Yeah.
that's driven by,
Yeah, there's a little bit of intensity at the beginning and end
Yeah.
of the days.
Yeah.
And then for Greene County, who I just presented to Tuesday night, and gave them kind of a combination of this presentation and the one you heard previously from Randy, they just had to turn over the service to JAUNT to run in 2020. They ran a on-demand service through phone call dispatch when they used to run it themselves. They would be super excited about piloting microtransit out there. They would like to have a conversation with JAUNT and Albemarle County about whether there's any possibility of shared interest on the cost that it would take to extend that route from where we stop on the 29 North route in Hollymead and make it go out to Ruckersville. And interestingly, something that's not, well, two things. Our current weekday service out there, which they like and is 5 days a week, transit should get people home when they take them there. And right now, based on their request, it ends at 5 p.m., which is not awesome for workforce, right?
Right.
And so we need to look at how can we keep that. And the chairwoman of the board out there asked me, can we give them a cost on Saturday service, which I've never seen out there, and we'll have to look at. Next, please. Louisa County, I have talked with Christian about this. I think in the year that we're going into, we're asking for a flat level of service. They're aware of the study and its recommendations. Go ahead. Nelson County. We have an extraordinarily passionate Nelson County representative on our board who is certain that we ought to serve Nelson County 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Outside of that, we are in conversation with Lucinda, Christine, and a group from Nelson that is not exactly in sync with what the board and the county executive's office there has decided that they want to appropriate the dollars for, which is to deal with one side of the mountain over there where they feel like there's more socioeconomic need. But we're trying to match that up with other creative solutions about funding and see what can be done there. We do have a conversation scheduled to talk to them particularly about the midday link, right? I think that what happens with a lot of these services is, at different points in time, they took out this midday service, right? But they didn't understand that some of the people, they ride the bus in, not necessarily because they go to work at UVA every day, but they were going to an appointment at one of the clinics. And it's a free ride in for more than an hour from some of these places in Nelson and Buckingham. And even in Greene, it can be 45 minutes depending on 29, right? And you might get out of your doctor's appointment at 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning, and we start running people back to Greene County at 4 in the afternoon, or back to Nelson County. So it's really inconvenient. So getting that midday schedule back in there is a high priority for some of these more rural locations. And then I think last is Goochland. So all evidence led to Goochland ought to be talking to GRTC or somebody else. Goochland asked me if we'd be willing to continue the conversation, not for anything within Goochland and not to run them to Richmond. They think that they have study results that tell them enough of their people are accessing both medical and retail in Zion's Crossroads that they'd like to pilot a service where we run people from the western part of Goochland County back and forth to Zion's, because there are, I think, both UVA and Martha Jeff clinics there, and then of course there is a concentration of retail. So an interesting idea, a conversation that is yet to be had.
I must admit, and I probably wasn't alone in this, I was surprised when I saw Goochland pop up, in this report.
Yeah.
Because we're not used to talking about Goochland.
No, it was at their request.
Interesting.
And so, as Jason said, when you're looking at these jurisdictions, of course, they have unmet needs. And there is a place where the resources meet what's possible. What you all should know is that we've taken these recommendations, we're in active conversation with each locality about them. And it serves as a good reference point for as we go forward over these next couple of cycles.
Can I add one more thing?
I don't
I
think
know
so,
we're-
because we're 4 minutes over, 4 minutes over.
No, you're
I know, that's why I asked for more time from Madam Chair.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Let me stop share here, I took some notes and I want to speak then. First of all, there was a component that wasn't really talked about a lot in this presentation. There was a stakeholder interview process with this study, and we did get some qualitative feedback. Surprisingly, a lot of that echoed what the recommendations are. It's like, yes, we need more midday, we need longer service spans to accommodate shift workers, and yada yada. A lot of those recommendations were very similar to the recommendations that Lucinda found in her survey, and I think those two combined provide a nice nexus of rationale for better service. Other than that, a couple things on the microtransit, just to backtrack on my tongue. No, my shaking his head.
Mike says no.
All right, I was going to do takeaways from that, things I learned.
We'll have another discussion.
All right.
At another time, right? So let me open this up for questions, to Mike and Jason for what we just saw for the transit needs assessment piece. Any questions?
Can you go back to the slide that showed peer analysis? Can you go back to that slide?
Yeah, I can do that.
Because I just, and I'll be frank, I did not read the report. Okay, I'm sorry, I did not.
This one or the 76 page?
The 76-page one. Okay, I did not. And I just want to make sure that I understand the methodology between identifying the needs.
Where did you want to go?
So so what I understand is this consultant from North Dakota.
North Dakota State, and specifically out of a transit institute that they operate out there. And so they are a transit think tank. He has his own kind of copyrighted transit gaps calculation that has been applied to a variety of different communities.
So he takes he takes like a profile of, he inputs some data about your community, and he has a profile based on income and a whole bunch of factors, and out it spits sorts of this need based on this profile that he's created. Is that a really simplified way of saying that?
When I was in here the other night, I put up all those maps for them, and it was like, here's why you have this concentration of people who are over age 65, people with disabilities, people who are, incomes under 35,000, people who, youth populations. He has looked at the demography of different communities that make them have a higher propensity towards use of public transit or having a mobility issue, and created kind of a calculus about how the availability might drive people onto the bus or the other public transit system.
Okay, because for lack of being able to converse with these folks, I mean, I understand some stakeholder group, but for lack of being able to say, we know that there are 20,000 people in this county, but only 10 of them are running the bus or riding on getting the service. Why not? He's trying to extrapolate what that is. The other question I had is there a way that he feeds into this model? And maybe I don't see it on there. Is there a way that he feeds into the model this sort of the dynamics that exist here with services, i.e. Charlottesville, UVA as a medical center for some of these counties where medical services aren't, or places where there's the grocery store, there aren't grocery stores, there aren't specific, I don't. Nelson County, there might be 4 doctors, and does he feed that stuff into the model, or not?
I don't think that that's well represented in the model, except that he had access to extensive information about pickup and drop-off destinations, and that does speak to where these folks are.
Okay.
Yeah, But the model per se, no. Demand side, like attraction side of that was really valuable. He's taking everything from demographics, and he has, for example, trips per year for population 65 and older.
Got it.
And he's building on the THCRP, which is the transit, it's a federal TCP. They've done studies like 2009, and he said, my model's taking 2017, and I'm adding into the basic, all those numbers, like 6 trips per year for this group, 5 trips per year for that group.
Okay.
That's all been like statistically worked on for many, many, many years. So he's building on that. What he's adding into it is the, he has an algorithm that says if you provide base service, it'll generate this many trips, but if you provide this much service, you're gonna get more. So that's where he got the 3 goals. They're about what service levels.
Right, and I'll just say, I can recall as we were doing some of this work with the RTP and visiting with some of these counties, and several of them acknowledged the need to understand the population. And what I think Lucinda brought up the point that if you talk to the people that are riding the bus, you're already your audience, right? They're taking advantage of the service. What you need is to figure out those that are not accessing the service and why. And I often wondered how you did that. I actually think this is kind of, I might go back and read this report. I think it's kind of interesting.
You have the holiday to do
Right,
that.
well, maybe not Christmas Day, but
Dive deep into a rabbit hole, sure, it's there.
Right, right, but what it does is, to me, it tries, it makes a shot at giving sort of voice to those that might need a service who don't know how to tell someone they need the service. So, okay, I'll just stop.
That's good. Other questions or any other comments?
Can I see the slide with the costs to
Sure,
meet the
sure,
gaps?
yeah, absolutely.
So are these operating costs coming out of his model, or are they the operating costs associated with the recommendations that you're?
This will go back in the envelope stuff.
Okay, so do we have any sense of how our recommendations might match up with a cost? Okay.
He didn't go that far.
Good.
There's one of the recommendations in the conclusion is that if you want to dive deeper into the service levels and what to implement, that could be another study.
Okay.
I will say, right, he's using
That's shocking.
data from fiscal 2023 to understand what it costs for, each trip, revenue mile, et cetera,
Okay.
right? And as we look at questions like what would it take to add Saturday and Green or things like that, we have a much more sophisticated budget tool for 26 that can answer based on the exact number of hours, your question
Yeah.
in a very different way than this.
Right. I didn't know if that was how they did this math or not, so I just wanted to
It's not
clarify.
that granular. This is like this many trips times this.
Yeah.
You're gonna need approximately that.
The other question I had is, was there a set of recommendations for Albemarle County? I think I've just blanked, but.
Yeah, there was.
It was the first.
Okay, that was the first one,
very
okay.
first one.
And
Yeah.
can we go back to that real
Yeah,
quick,
sure.
because I did definitely miss that.
The recommendations.
For the recommendations, yeah,
It was the very first one.
It was about Crozet microtransit and number of hours per day.
okay.
And is that from the report? Are those recommendations on those specific services, is that from the report?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, that is directly taken from one of the narratives in the report.
And he got that just by analyzing the data.
There you go.
Crozet needs some rides, and here's where you could supplement them with rides. Is that right? Okay.
And so I think when you were pointing out the goals and how they align with the specific areas within the counties and not just county as a whole, you were pointing out that there was rural needs within Albemarle County. So I'm guessing that first bullet is supposed to be helping us under recommendations. That's supposed to be addressing that need, or is there?
Well, that's actually something that Mike and I kind of like epiphany today.
Oh, good.
Um,
Still learning.
Dr. Batson didn't really go there. He just said, to reach the next level, you need to do this.
Okay.
Are these rides, these goal rides not being achieved, or are these rides that JAUNT can achieve that may be provided some other way? You see what I'm saying? Like,
I'm not exactly sure what you're saying, but what they are here
Are these
is-
gaps or potential?
no, what I'm saying is like the algorithm indicates one ride can go to the grocery store. Is that person not making it to the grocery store, or is this somebody that is going to the grocery store probably, but John can also get in there?
What I think it really says is, you know, in 2023, when I looked at this data set, you know, 160,000 unlinked passenger trips happened in Albemarle County. And if you provided the level of service that this report recommends, we might expect that you would serve 187,000.
But it's not telling you whether that's a new trip or a replacement of an existing trip or
It's
whatever.
probably just looking at the census tract information, telling you where the activity centers are, and using an algorithm telling you, based on the numbers that they have, there's potential for you to do more trips to activity centers based on their model. That's normal, just
But it's not gonna
basic
get into telling us
planning.
whether we're reducing car trips
correct.
or
It's
anything.
not,
We're at that
asking
scale
that.
yet.
Because it probably doesn't know what, it'd have to look at the actual trip patterns for existing road traffic to be able to predict that, and I'm pretty sure they didn't grab that.
I mean, from where I sit, it matters whether a transit trip is replacing a single occupancy trip or a carpool or some other thing.
That's a whole.
Yeah.
But that's assuming that, so when you add transit, you're going to make those trips available. If there is no transit, they're using single occupancy vehicles, right? So
Or not.
the chicken and the egg concept, right? As soon as you put it in, there is pent up demand, there will be usage. The question is how much usage?
And some of it is switching, and some of it is people who don't get to the places where they want to go as often as they'd like, right? You know, it's a combination.
Yeah.
So if you took the inverse of Dr. Matson's sort of analysis and applied it to a hypothetical county that had no people over 65, no one in poverty, no one with disabilities, like this hypothetical state, this model would say there's no need.
Right. So, and I'm gonna, with all due respect, I wanna make sure we get to some of the other points, so.
That's right.
Mike, you're doing great, you're this is great. Are there any other questions that really have to be asked right now? I'm gonna suggest that we move on if that's okay. And certainly at your all's request, we can come back to this and have another discussion of some of this at another time, right? That be okay?
Yeah.
All right. Regional Transit Authority Working Group, Ann Wall and Ben Chambers, do you all want to give us an update?
Yeah, sure, I can take that.
You all are prepared for that.
Yeah, we won't have any slides for today because the slides that we have are the same ones that you have seen before. We are now going before County Board of Supervisors yesterday and City Council on Monday to remind them of our presentation that we made to the joint session back in September and ask them to approve their membership in CARTA. So CARTA now exists because it has one member, Albemarle County, that's very excited to be a member of CARTA.
City too.
But we need a second partner. So we'll be coming to the City Council on Monday evening, showing them the same slideshow presentation and hopefully getting the same result as we got at the county. And then the next step is coming before the Council and Board of Supervisors again in January to name the members of CARTA, the specific members who will sit on the board, 2 from the county, 2 from the city. And we'll also be going before the board and City Council to ask for an endorsement on a grant application for DRPT. We'll be going after a technical assistance grant to look at the transit vision plan and decide what in there is our priority as a region. What should we be going after first? What do we need money for to build? So before we can go to the General Assembly or to the state government and ask for more money from the state, we need to have some priorities set that we can all agree on and say that those are our regional priorities. So that's where we're headed next year. We've got a full year ahead of us of setting up CARTA officially, getting some technical and finance committees started on their work, and doing bylaws, approving those, making sure that we understand what everyone's roles are, and then moving forward with the planning work that CARTA needs to undertake. So it's exciting.
So one of the goals will be then to go to the General Assembly, obviously not in the session that's coming up, but in the following session. And by that time, we hope we'll have we'll have all this worked out so we can do that.
I don't know that we'll have every bit of it worked out, but we'll at least have a much better conversation with our legislator in a year from
And
now,
that's
not this January.
That's fair.
Yeah.
And I will say, I'm getting a lot of questions from folks at this point about, well, now that you're setting up the authority, is the Regional Transit Partnership just going to shut down and go away? So Ann and Ben, I'd like you all to help address that a little bit, because at the end of the day, we have a good year's work, 6, 8 months, I don't know, years worth. So you wanna take that on for me?
Yeah, I think that's really gonna be a part of the discussion that CARTA as a board is gonna need to have in its early infancy. I think that's also a conversation y'all will need to have, and we, as part of y'all, will need to have as part of the RTP is what is the appropriate role for the RTP going forward? Is there an appropriate role for the RTP going forward? Do we need to change what the role of the RTP is to address some of the things that CARTA as a legislatively enabled body can't really address? There are some differences between the Regional Transit Partnership. We have a lot of the same makeup, but you know, UVA is not a voting member of CARTA. How do we deal with how we are organizing UVA versus county versus city? So there are some things that still need to be discussed. We don't have all of the things solved with CARTA quite yet. But yeah, there needs to be some discussion of, do we wind this down, or is there some other purpose for RTP moving forward?
But just to clarify for folks who were, I don't think that you're gonna see the Regional Transit Partnership just disappear in the next 2 months.
No.
Correct.
I mean, we're talking 6, 8, 9 months.
Right.
Maybe a year, right? So we will continue. And I know, and Mike, does that help? Some of folks were having some questions about that, and I just want to make sure.
Only in that when Catano, left the JAUNT board, he was no longer part of this group, right? And I had a question about, do you want me to give you a new JAUNT urban representative for the RTP? Will the RTP function long enough for that to make sense to onboard somebody and get them up to speed?
And a fair question.
Right, it's fair.
Yeah,
I think
fair
for the next
question.
6 to 8 months,
But
the
I
answer
would
is yes.
say 6 to 8 months at a minimum, right? So my answer would be yes, but you all have to decide what you're gonna do, right? And I do think as we get into this, things will come up that we're not anticipating as well. So, just saying. All right, are there any questions about the authority and this update that we just had? Are we good? Good questions? All right, and we're thrilled that it's going to City Council next week. I may come with Jim Bell. All right, transit provider updates at this point. And Jamie, you first on the list.
Okay.
There you go.
Well, I appreciate you all including us in this meeting. I think I've learned a lot. This is the second time I've come, and I am still trying to piece out what would be important to share, but I think everyone knows I just started this school year in transportation for the public schools, and it's been a real big rebuilding year. We were very short. We were able to hire a lot of folks, including probably 15 or so staff members for just building positions, which I don't know if people were aware of. So we've spent a lot of time this fall just improving processes and rebuilding the department. One of the places we're still short is with our special needs drivers and van drivers. So we've just seen an increase in our sped population of kids that need to go to different schools that maybe we can't service within Albemarle County. So maybe like one that has come up a bunch this year that I hadn't heard of before is like Rivermont Rockbridge.
Oh, Rockbridge.
And then our families in crisis, our homeless students, and foster care students. And so last year, the department partnered with a vendor, Everdriven, and we utilized them this school year. And I've also recently partnered with River North, which is via transportation, the microcat service. And we will be starting with them in January to kind of try it out and see how it goes. Something else that's been interesting is the school division as a whole have identified TSI schools, so schools that need targeted support and intervention, and they are getting priority services across the division from all departments, and so those schools have asked for more tutoring service or Saturday school service, and we've been able to provide that so far, so that's been good. But Those are just, it's just a few similarities on a smaller scale that we're working on too.
But that's really an interesting update. That's great. We really appreciate that because I don't think those are things that we would normally be thinking about. And I do see some connections as to how maybe we can all support each other in some of those as time goes on. Yeah, really interesting, okay? Anybody have a question for Jamie? All right, Scott, you're on, UTS. I'm still waiting for those small buses to get under those railroad.
All right, then I'm gonna go first. Santa came early. They are here.
Really?
Yes.
That's
We just have a very lengthy process to go through to get them where we're ready to put them on the street. They literally just arrived last week. We have 5 of them on our lot. The E-Jest, we're talking about the Carson E-Jest, low floor micro transit buses, mini transit buses. So they're on our lot. We are doing, they have cameras installed, they have Transload getting installed, which is our GPS tracking system. They've got their sign packages, so they need to be safety training. We've got a whole package that we're going through with electric vehicle, safety for our maintenance crews and our service fleet. But I will confidently say that they will be placed into service early in the spring semester, sometime. Kendall, who misses coming to this meeting, swears to me that it'll be January, and I keep telling him I'm not pressuring you, like, let's do it right. So 5 buses, we will use them on basically lower volume routes. So our night pilot, which is our late night bus service for students, 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., we'll probably start using them there. We might use them on our silver route. We're not entirely sure just yet exactly where we'll add them in, but we're excited about them, so they're here.
And just to let people know what I keep going in, that as the University of Virginia builds new housing and lots of new students are going in on Old Abbey Road and those railroad underpasses, it's really critical to have those buses so that we can serve that area and not have those kids walking on a dangerous road or driving cars.
Well, and another great feature, I witnessed it myself when I was on them in the summer when we had them here, is they're so maneuverable around the tight streets of Charlottesville.
Oh, that's
so we took
great.
them, from the Ronald McDonald House to the medical center, around the medical center route, because we're looking at how we can partner with our own health system to manage transportation. So, yeah, they're just,
That's great.
we're excited. We just have a lot to learn, and we're dipping our toe into that water, so.
Good, so good for railroad bridges and good for city streets.
Yeah, and of course, it's better to have a 20-foot bus than a 35-foot bus if it only has 4 or 5 people on it.
It's more cost effective,
Right.
80,000 as opposed to 160.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
And then on that vein, we also were, I think, Gil had called us a couple of months ago and said, hey, we might have some slots available for our battery electric buses based on an order change. So we hopped onto that opportunity, and sometime in June or July of 25, they will begin production for 4 battery electric buses that are 35 footers, which we have ordered. So they should arrive, let's call it fall of next year. So we will theoretically a year from now have 9 battery electric buses in operation. So we're very excited about that.
Very good.
And then the only other update I have, which is less on UTS and more on Wahoo Commute, but it's to the point about single occupancy vehicle conversions. If you remember, Patrick Clark came here a year ago and talked about it. We launched it in September. This is the incentive to not drive to grounds by yourself in a car. So that is, now we're into 2 months of operations. We're up to about 550 participants that have actually signed up and said, yes, I'll do it. It's kind of like what I thought. A lot of people that are already doing things are now going, oh, you're going to give me $1 a day to do that? Okay, I'll do it.
Yeah.
But we have had people turn in their parking permits, which is one of the conditions. So we are seeing some folks say, yep, I'll give up my parking permit and switch to an alternative mode. About 550 signed up, and I don't know the exact number that have given up a permit, but let's say it's about 20 or 25, but it's a start.
Very cool.
So we're excited about that too. That's my only.
So questions for Scott? Like the idea.
I guess I do have one question about Wahoo Commute.
Yes, sir.
So you have 500 or so folks who have signed up for it. I understand there's a threshold before you're eligible to get an e-bike subsidy. Has anybody gotten to that point yet?
I don't think so, but I will find out and let
Okay.
everybody know. Yes.
I'd love to know, because we're about to launch our e-bike subsidy in a couple weeks. So I'd like to know how that's working out for you.
Yeah. We are, and we tried to put some strings to it, you know, we didn't just want people to go, oh, yeah, I'll do it, and then get an e-bike. It's not about giving a person an e-bike, it's about getting a person to consider riding that e-bike to grounds instead of driving, so, yeah.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, yes, Nellie.
What is the highest ranking person at UVA who participates in this program?
Oh.
That's a great question. Highest ranking? Well, I think President Ryan walks to work. I don't know if he's not.
I'm just wondering if there's like some top-down examples that people can.
Kendall
look at.
Howell, I think.
Kendall's, I mean, he's a huge proponent. He's a vanpole, but we actually, and I'm forgetting which one it is. I want to say it's not a dean. It's a chair. There's somebody on the academic side who is a huge. Is it Afton Express or is he on Connect? I can't remember. I will look into that as well.
It would be good for marketing for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we've been, I think I said before, it was, we didn't want to get overwhelmed, so it's kind of been a slow launch. It's definitely been spreading because there's a lot to it. I think I said when I talked about it before, the carpool, we made some pretty significant changes to the way we're doing carpooling, and so that took a lot of effort to kind of walk some people back from some frustrations. We took away some of the benefits to carpooling and changed it a little bit. Basically, the special reserve spaces are gone now, and some other things that made some people a little, there's just some customer service issues there, but the marketing will really come in the coming year. And the other thing that we're working to do, which is, okay, now that we've got a couple of months of experience, we've got some feedback, is how are we gonna actually, like, how do we know that Wahoo Commute is a success? What is the measure? Is it, greenhouse gas reductions? Is it, number of permits that are turned in? Or is it just the fact that we have more data on how to reach out to folks that are using micromobility, carpooling, et cetera? Because we didn't really get that info from them before. That, if you didn't have to report it, you didn't report it. So now we're getting that data.
I'm getting the sense that Jamie might like to talk to you about carpooling and incentives at some point. I'm looking at her, watching her body language. Any other questions or comments? All right. Cat and City of Charlottesville school system, Carlin.
I'll start on the school system side first. So there's an EPA grant that we were able to secure that allowed us to get 2 battery electric buses. That program, we've actually ordered the vehicles. So we're on a time frame now, probably 14, 15 months.
Yeah.
So all systems go. We are in communications with Dominion. They've come out to the property a couple times now, and they're starting to do the design and layout to put the infrastructure in place. The agreement, though, I think this is one of the pieces that was not always known, but we are aware that there's a provision in the agreement that we will sign with Dominion because they're paying for all the infrastructure. In the summertime, they have to be on the chargers from noon to 6 because they're using them as kind of a support to the grid. So we're working through that model. So saying that because that means if we were to, the more we do, then that takes the vehicles away from us for usage in the summertime, right? So we still have a responsibility to get students to and from school in the summer. So we're moving that model out. So we're doing 2 this year, and then we're putting in a potentially looking at whether that's 2, 4, whatever it is for next fiscal year that's coming up, 26. But our model probably between 2 and 6, let's say, at some point in the future. That'll be our first pilot and test to see how well we can integrate the battery electric technology buses at the school side. All right. On CAT side, we're in the roll on the battery electric. So we're January, we will be officially putting in our order to Gillick to buy 2 buses through the grant that was authorized us by the RPT. That starts our time frames, and our model over there is a whole lot different. There's a lot more infrastructure because of the amount of energy that's needed to charge the buses. That time frame is a whole heck of a lot longer. So we are working through that. We are aware that once we put in the order, we're probably 20 months before we get it. That's probably, we're cutting it close, because all of what we need to get done, with some of the other infrastructure improvements that need to be done at the facility. We'll be starting a survey and a NEPA process, because these are major capital project outlays that FDA is requiring us to do. So that process also starts in January. So there's a lot of momentum on the improvement side for alternative fuel vehicles. We're also in discussions with potentially getting a new consultant on board to look at starting to lay out the design infrastructure components necessary to do the hydrogen portion of our fuel, which is coming up in 27. We need to start that conversation now, because that time frame to bring hydrogen is a lot longer than 2 years. It's probably 3 years before we be able to have everything we need and identify a fueling source to bring it in if we're not doing on-site electrolysis ourselves. So great news. We're moving. We're dipping our toe into both realms, would be battery electric and new hydrogen. We've had an opportunity to do 2 tours at MTD in Champaign-Urbana. I think we've learned a lot of lessons from them, some things that they're doing. So they have kind of inverted what we're doing. They're doing hydrogen first, battery electric on the back end. But I think with the 2 pilots, we'll be able to quickly figure out which one works best for us and move and pivot quickly enough to build out our model faster.
And that's a great segue, because I want to thank Kat and the City of Charlottesville for supporting and sending 20-some people, close to 30 people perhaps, to Champaign-Urbana to look at this model. And there were Albemarle County folks, the City of Charlottesville, UVA folks, school folks from Albemarle County Public Schools. And we really do want to thank Kat and the City of Charlottesville for that trip and for that experience.
Oh, I love the fact that the region was very interested in this.
Yeah.
And it's a great model. We wanted to try to bring our state partners, but unfortunately we couldn't make that happen. But the feds love this kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's when we are able to, as a region, try to look at something before we ask for the big money, which we will be asking for the big money.
And that can mean cha-ching, cha-ching.
It can mean cha-ching, cha-ching. So we're gonna be working with our state partners to do the application, the grant writing side, so that is coming. We know if we partner with them, we can make the application much stronger. We're gonna need a ton of money to pull this off, so.
Do we have any inkling about how that might change with the incoming administration?
We're gonna keep our fingers crossed. No, we do not. We'll know exactly when we do. That we are aware, though, that some of the there are time frames on some of the existing money that will expire 27 or 28.
And that will be available no matter what.
I think that.
Unless something significant changes.
So there are in the existing legislation, I think there are sunset provisions of the 27, in the 27, which means
The money's available.
so through December of 27, December 31st of 27. I don't know what happens after that.
Yeah.
But we can get in the queue before that, and hopefully we can secure our portion before that
Moving
expires.
with some urgency would be advantageous.
There's steps, which is why I'm saying there's things that we have to do to be able to get to the money. So the survey, the NEPA process, that's about 1.5 years for us, and then we can. So the time frame is pretty quick. It's going to be bumping up against the sunset provision. So
The other thing I would add, and I'm not trying to take up all the conversation here, but I do think it would be beneficial for Garland to give a presentation to this group around the Champaign-Urbana trip and some of the information and what we found. I know a lot of people here went on the trip, but people did not, and it would also be good for members of the public if they wanted to watch it. So I'd like to see that go on our agenda after the first of the year at some point for that discussion, because it is playing out in the community and it's influencing what Kat and what we're doing in the community. So I think it's a good idea to have that presentation.
be very happy to do it.
Yeah. And any other questions though for Garland about schools or county?
I think maybe we haven't talked about this since last meeting, but you had some service updates in November?
Service updates, yes. So we had our first of 2 required service updates based on our union contract. It was November 9th. We've extended the service to the center.
Where is Peter?
Where's Peter? Where's Peter when you need him?
Peter Thompson, yeah.
So I will definitely make sure I call Peter and say, hey, we did it, and I didn't get a call from him. So that
You should
is
have gotten a bottle of champagne.
something, Snickers bar or something. But so that has been done. We are working on we had a route that was 70 minutes that has been corrected. All of our routes now, the longest one is 60 minutes, but we are working through that. We have plans to update some additional service. That's contingent upon the service requests that we want to do, or contingent upon getting more drivers in FY26. But in one of the key components that we're trying to get done is the enhancement of the 2, making it bi-directional, sending it by the jail.
Thank you.
That is on our queue, but we do not have the number of drivers necessary to make that happen yet. That is the key. So that's one of our major requests for FY26. As soon as we can get those drivers, then we can actually make that service happen. It takes more drivers than we thought, because what happens is you're layering routes, because there's 2 spurs. One will go into 5th Street, and then the other will end at PVCC. That main trunk will have very high frequency service, but everything else, being on a 30-minute route, would require 2 to 3 vehicles. So we're working through that model, but we'll get there.
Great. Any other questions?
Quick question, you might not know this off the top of your head, which is totally fine, but of the 8 positions that we allocated money for last budget cycle, have they been filled?
So great question. I just had this, I do know the answer because I just went through this with Sam. So for our budget, we were chipping away at that. We had 3 of the 8 filled, and then we lost through retirements and then some discipline issues. We have lost 4, so we're back to the original 8. But we have 3 that are in the queue right now, so we'll potentially be back to the 5, and I'm aware that we have 4 interviews tomorrow.
Great.
So
Hopefully
the
they go
goal,
well.
yes.
Thanks.
Other questions? All right, Mike, JAUNT, update.
You saw that we finished some stuff. There is another piece of work that we've been engaged in about battery electric buses, which has been a bit more challenging to bring to a close, but it is part of our and we are actively engaged on another much larger electrification project where we're partnering with Dominion, Virginia Power, and Bay Area Transit on a rather large federal grant that they landed called Project Sync, which would allow us to not only put in the infrastructure we need at JAUNT, but also to site the opportunity chargers out in the community that make in-route charging capable. And so we are in the planning stages of that grant right now, combination of JAUNT, Bay Area Transit, Virginia Clean Cities,
Guidehouse Consulting,
DRBT. It's a large effort. It's budget season, and I have the joy of 7 different localities, and so we are here, there, and everywhere right now. And the state budget for us, is due, just a month after we get back from the holidays. And we've got quite a lot of work right now. We're very solidly done with the operational budget. The capital budget is undergoing some refinement right now to have that be totally ready. I'm excited to say that we've got a strategic day planned with our board, full Friday, and January on the 17th. We have commitment from our board members and the RPT to be present and walk through, where have we been and what are some of the big drivers for JAUNT and for our region, and talk a little bit about what we should be prioritizing. I had a super cheerful meeting with DRPT last Tuesday and Wednesday in Stanton about, what was about 6 months ago being referred to by DRPT as the fiscal cliff. And I think somebody gently coached them to stop saying that. However, I think that from our perspective, we've had some conversation, understand about some alternatives. It's not a 26 issue so much as 27 and beyond. And I think there are some ways in which there's good news in that, right? Which is that there's lots of communities that are identifying that they haven't had service and that they really need it. It's just that the pot isn't growing to accommodate them, right? So we need to be thinking creatively about how we go forward. I guess the last thing I would say is that we're taking a little bit different approach to celebrating our team in this holiday season, regardless of what holiday you celebrate. And at their request and also deference to their schedules, we are hosting the kind of in and out sort of, we have the whole back room at the exciting Wood Grill on Monday from 11 till 3. And, being the generous recipient of invitations from our colleagues at CAT to their various functions, I want to extend to all of you that should you find yourself in your heart wishing that you were having lunch at the Wood Grill
On Monday.
as partners to JAUNT on Monday, then please do drop in and say hi and have lunch.
I'll put that on my calendar, everybody else should do that as well. Great, thank you. Katie, DRPT.
Yeah, a little bit of what Mike alluded to is the 5311 funding shortfall. So we've definitely had a lot of COVID uplift funding over the past couple of years that is running out. And a lot of our rural service across the state has expanded, which is awesome. We love to see that, but now we're kind of getting back to our base. And luckily, Virginia does have a lot of dedicated state transit funding, so we're hoping to come up with a scenario. We're going to ask for a lot of input from the rural transit agencies on how this is going to look, and seeing there might be need to be some CTB action to raise the amount of state funding that can be put on some grants, hoping to kind of keep agencies whole where they are and try to meet some of those gaps and future service needs. So it's definitely a work in progress. Again, it's less of a concern for this grant cycle, but looking at 27, it is not an ideal scenario, definitely, but so definitely in the coming months we'll be doing a lot of outreach, trying to figure out what that will look like. We also have a new director, so the past couple months, Zach Trogdon has been our acting director. Tiffany Robinson is coming from the governor's office. She has a really extensive background in state government in Maryland, so we're excited. She seems to be looking to really support our programs as they are, which is great to see. And so, she's been there for about a month, so I think we'll continue to see more in her kind of also interfacing in the community. And then our grant cycle is open December 1st until February 1st. Looking forward to working with CAT and DJBC and JAUNT on their applications and how we can support their programs.
Great, any questions for Katie? I just would ask, with the General Assembly session coming up, if there's anything that's happening in the General Assembly as far as bills or anything that you think we should know about, or certainly our localities should jump on. We would love to know about it.
Okay, yeah, I can get some, try to keep those updates from our legislative team.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
All right, with that, then staff updates. Does staff have any updates?
Yeah, so on the table in front of everybody is a letter of support. We are applying for a DRPT grant to continue our mobility management program, otherwise known as PATH. We provide a call-in center to direct people to transit and help work, kind of counsel them and work them through finding rides. It's for older adults and people with disabilities. I've given some presentations earlier about the program and our success in our first year. So I'm asking the committee to entertain a motion to provide this letter of support for our fiscal year 2026 mobility management grant program.
So I would take that as an opportunity for a motion or a discussion, whichever you all would prefer.
So moved.
There you go. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right. I heard,
You did it first.
all right, we'll go with Mike. Mike, would you call the roll for this, please? Please say that. And I will sign this before I leave today, so, because I know it's timely.
Thank
Get
you.
it going.
Supervisor McKeel.
Yes.
Counselor Pinkston.
Yes.
Counselor Oshra.
Yes.
Supervisor Pruitt.
Aye.
Director Parker.
Yes.
Ms. Miller.
Yes.
Abstain.
Yeah, I think those two.
Yeah, that makes sense. Abstention.
Director Silsdorf,
Yes.
and that's all.
All right, so you have your approval.
Thank you.
That's right. The only other thing then, oh, did you have anything else?
No.
All right, then I'm gonna add, as I mentioned earlier, the Central Virginia Regional Housing Partnership has requested a person identified from us that would be an alternate for me. I'm in the role as the chair, but they're trying to get alternates evidently, not from all of the localities. I do promise this is not because I missed so many meetings, that they're trying to figure out what I look like. I think it's just standard operating procedure for them now. So would there be anyone who would be willing to volunteer to be my alternate for the Central Virginia Regional Housing Partnership meeting?
Would you mind describing the work behind it a little bit? Behind the partnership and what they're doing?
Oh, well, it's a regional group that comes together, made up of the localities that you might expect, Nelson, and they talk about affordable housing initiatives. There are some developers on the committee. There's a variety of folks.
I think it's 2 on second Wednesdays.
And it's 2:00 on Wednesdays. You have the second Wednesday. Don't meet every month. And, but it's really around a partnership with the localities to to figure out how to create and provide and support more affordable housing in our districts.
And you're representing
I represent
RTP.
not Albemarle County, but
Okay.
transit. And the reason that they wanted someone from transit was because there's definitely a connection between transit and affordable housing. So that's how
you can't go to the person?
that would be, it was if I needed someone to fill in for me. And I've so far, I think I've missed one, maybe 2 meetings over the last few years. But, I think they're trying to get alternates for everybody. And
I serve as an alternate for Ned Galway in his county capacity and have never had the opportunity to attend in my capacity as an alternate.
But I'm happy to make it advantageous for you all if you have a desire to go to a meeting. I can volunteer to do something else.
Sure.
But it is interesting, as the transit representative, aside from being engaged in the work that they're trying to do around affordable housing, my responsibility at each meeting is to report out what the Regional Transit Partnership is doing. And it's a quick, just a couple of minutes, report out, so.
I don't want to step in line, but I'd be willing to throw my hat in
That's
helping
lovely.
you out. Yeah.
All right, does anybody want to fight Ben for this opportunity?
Can I ask Diana?
Sure.
Who's really eligible? Because I would just say,
I'll catch up with you.
does it have to be one of the voting members? I would
Yes.
say, I can't vote or make a motion to do anything on behalf of RTP when I'm here, and so I would assume it has to be one of the voting.
I would assume that as well, and I think to be safe, a voting member would be.
Okay, well, that's a problem for me.
Yes, that's why I mentioned it,
Thank
because
you.
I wasn't thinking in those lines, and I
Yeah, I
should
wasn't either,
have.
but-
Like you have a little spark of.
Interest?
I am already an alternate in one capacity, and frankly, we'll probably have to, in our organizational meeting, resign that because I've worked it too.
How about you, Councilor Oshler?
I can't do the timing. Otherwise, I would be.
I'm happy to. You are.
Thank you.
All right.
And I promise that I will not create any more opportunities for you than so I guess we probably need to vote on that. So let's have a motion to, identify Brian Kingston as my alternate for the Central Virginia Regional Housing Partnership.
So moved.
Second?
Supervisor McKeel.
Yes.
Counselor Pinkston.
Yes.
Counselor Oshram.
Yes.
Supervisor Pruitt.
Aye.
Director Parker.
Yes.
Ms. Miller.
Yes.
Director Silsdorf.
Yes.
And that's all.
All right, thank you. So Brian, I appreciate it very much. And I really thank you, Mike, for thinking about the volume and non-voting. That was a good catch on your part. And hearing no other comments or questions or objections, I'm going to adjourn us to January the 23rd, 4 o'clock, same place. And have a lovely holiday. Be safe and have fun and enjoy your families. All right.
See you.
See you Monday.
See you Monday.
Yeah.
Okay. Three meetings. We're meeting here, right, 2 meetings on Monday. True.
Did you just add another one?
Yeah, and then Monday night. Okay.
Yeah, and you know we're like 4.
So is that like,
I don't know how long.
is that 8:30?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah, because they get started at 6:30, then they get public comment. They have like 16 slots for public comment.
Oh, damn it. Okay.
We might be having a late night.
Okay.
We go through the budget forum for the next 2 hours.
Nice. Well, I gotta go I gotta do some shopping, Christmas shopping. Okay.
When you're asking me a question about so, what I was trying to figure out is like whether there's purple lines on the map